Within the last 24 hours, I've spoken to two independent authors, and they had a bunch of different questions when it comes to publishing their work. And so, based on those questions, it made me realize this is what I need to do my next video on the power that the literary industry does not want you to have, the power that lies and resides in self-publishing your book. I want to put you on some game. So if it seems of interest to you, then go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and then at the end of this video, once you make it to the end, hopefully you do, if it was of value to you, you can share it to someone who it could help. So I'll give you a second to do that, and then I'll introduce myself and we'll get right to it. Thank you so much for doing that. My name is Lynette Renee Doby, and I'm an Amazon best-selling ghostwriter. And I am here to help you get to the finish line to create your book. This channel is for individuals, anyone who has a message. So high-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, founders, anyone with thought leadership who wants to write a nonfiction book in 2025. Or if you're here in the future, whatever year it is, if you want to write your book, I will definitely help you do that with the content on this page. And also you can go to www.rightwayconsulting.net to get more information. So now let's get into the topic of this video. So there is power in the independent publishing. So let's just take a little trip down memory lane or knowledge lane if you don't know how traditional publishing goes. So traditional publishing is about a 15 to 16 month process. It can be. So what happens is you have to get a literary agent. That agent, will help you create via a ghostwriter or maybe yourself, create a book proposal, and that book proposal gets shopped to different publishers. And then the publishers, if they like you and your idea for your book, they will pick it up and then they give you an advance, and then the book gets written during that time. And that can take anywhere from 6 to 8 months, depending on the ghostwriter or if you're writing it yourself. Then as you're getting to the end of that book, then you begin to start marketing it. And so that's when the PR firms come in. And then once the book is completed, it gets published, it gets printed, it gets hosted on different websites for it to be able to be purchased. And then if it does well, it becomes a bestseller, and on and on and on and on and on. It's an amazing path for an individual to go on, but not all of us can afford the time and the money that takes. So that's why independent publishing is a game changer. It allows you to do a couple of different things. Independent publishing allows you to have higher creative control. So you don't have to stay within the guidelines of a publishing house. If they don't want you to talk about this and you want to talk about this, they're like, no, you got to take that out. When you're writing your own thing, you don't have to adhere to anything but what you want to do. That's number one. Number two, this is my favorite part. You get higher royalties when it comes to independently publishing your own book. And we all like more money in our pocket. And I think it's especially important for you to get paid very well for your intellectual property. We'll talk more about royalties in a second. And then lastly, independent publishing allows you to have a faster entry into the marketplace. Your go-to-market strategy is going to be way lower than the one that I just talked about at the top of this video a couple of minutes ago, going through all those different steps when you do traditional publishing. One of the authors that I spoke to that I mentioned earlier, he wrote his book in 2 months. See how quickly that happened? And it's already up on Amazon, available for sale. So we'll talk about them later. So you'll see the difference between the two and why I think it's powerful for you to be able to have that control when it comes to publishing your independent book. This video is going to be a guide that I hope that you can use all throughout 2025 as how to self-publish effectively. And also, I want you to begin to think of yourself as an entity. If you don't take anything away from this video, realize how much of an entity and how much power you have in the self or independent publishing industry or taking that route. So yes, without further ado, let's keep on going. So when it comes to, I like to call it hybrid publishing, to be honest with you, what I'm about to go over next. There are a couple of different names that you're going to sound familiar with when it comes to self-publishing individuals' books. So number one is going to be Amazon, KDP. Number two is IngramSpark. Number three is Draft to Digital. Out of those three names, I'm pretty sure you're most familiar with Amazon. So we'll go ahead and stay there for a second. When it comes to publishing with Amazon, there are definitely some pros and cons. Number one, Amazon is going to do that heavy lifting for you. It's going to make your product and your book accessible to its, hundreds upon thousands of millions of users globally, worldwide. And so that sounds like a good thing, right? Because you're like, wow, I don't have to deal with the shipping costs. I don't have to deal with the printing costs. Amazon is going to ensure that I get, my readers get their books. And so that does sound good, but I want you to kind of think about this con. One of the major cons, I think, is the royalties in which they impose upon their authors. Because Amazon doesn't just see themselves as e-commerce when it comes to book. They see themselves as a major publisher, and they are. And so their royalties are less than it would be with traditional publishing, true indeed, but it's still, So it's a 40-60 split for you. So Amazon with 40 and then 60% with you. But that 40% isn't just a flat 40%. They also include the printing costs in there. So depending on the length of your book, if it's, 350 pages, it's going to be a certain amount to have that printed each time it's ordered, because Amazon, of course, does a print on demand. So that means whenever someone orders, their book will be printed and then it gets sent to them, wherever their destination is. So it's a print on demand system. So if you have a book that retails for, the list price is $25, you're going to subtract 40% from that and the printing cost, and then that's what you're left with. I kind of think that we can do better than that. I really think we can do better than that. And so I've done a talk, which leads me to my third point. I've done a talk about how big ebooks are getting for 2025. And I want to reiterate that here. So hear me and hear me clear. If you don't have any other option when it comes to printing, because there are other options, local options that you can do. You can actually hire a local printer to print your book on demand. But if you don't have any of those options, I'm not saying that you should not use Amazon KDP to have your print on demand service, to fulfill your print on demand orders. I'm not saying that, but I also want you to think of it in another way. If you're willing to, you can format that same book into an ebook, and then that way you can have more of the control and royalties or sales from that item. And I'm going to explain to you why. My biggest thing when I speak to first-time authors or emerging authors is I want you to keep as much ownership as you can, because let's be clear, your book is a tool. You might not necessarily gain so much money from your book, but it's a tool to get you to another different point or area in your career. So if you have that, you might as well get as much money from it. If you put in your time, your interest, and your intellectual property, ownership is key. And so you may be thinking at this point, well, Lynette, what do I do if I have an ebook, I upload it to my website and people pirate it and they share it, against my wishes? There are different ways you can safeguard yourself against that. So if you're willing to format it to an ebook, you can definitely host it on your website. And there are websites like Podia that enable you to have some security measures when individuals do purchase something from your store. You can also opt to do an individual download for every single person that buys it. You can get a downloadable link. They'll get a one-time use downloadable link that prohibits them from sharing it to other people. So that's very good. Or if you don't even want to go through the mental sparring to try to figure out how to do that or use a different platform for that, you can upload your ebook to an e-commerce platform such as Etsy, who simply see themselves as an e-commerce site. They don't see themselves as publishers. So that tells you a couple things. That means, number one, Etsy is going to have a lower royalty, price every single time someone buys your book. And that's what you kind of want to look for. You want to look for an environment that's advantageous for you and for them, because they are, of course, hosting it. But if you can find a way to cut out the middleman period, I recommend that you host it on your own website, put some security behind it, either password protected per purchase, and then get 100% of those royalties, because you deserve it. This is your intellectual property. And then also on top of that, when you're hosting it on your own, you're allowed, it gives you the freedom. I want to use that word. It gives you the freedom to set up a way to monitor who's buying your book and opting them into your email list. So that way you're building your community as you're selling your book. Because again, your book is meant to be a tool for you. It's not meant to be a burden. It's not meant to be something you put all your time and your money into and you don't get anything from it. Use it as the tool that it is. Now, again, I'm speaking about business books and thought leadership books and nonfiction books. Fiction is going to be something else. But in this realm, in this conversation, we're talking about nonfiction books. So use that. that. Keep your intellectual property. What I'm wanting to do with the authors that I work with, and I'm getting passionate about this, y'all, but I'm serious about it. I want to instill in my authors that ownership is key, and we need to disconnect ourselves from the big corporate machines who do not need our money. We need our money. Okay? We need our money. So Amazon does have a lot of good things going for it, true indeed. But there are other ways that you can work your way around it and get nearly 100%, or if not 90%, but a higher percentage of your royalties, and that's what you deserve. Stop feeding the big corporate machines. Okay, I'll get down off my soapbox. And lastly, I'll end the video by saying this. Whichever way you choose to host your ebook, just ensure that it works. There's nothing worse for your consumer or your client or your community member or your reader to purchase something and it never gets sent to them. Either the download link doesn't get sent to them, or if it does get sent to them, it doesn't work. That's frustrating. Or they never get their book, period, regardless of the download link. You can even have automation that will send them the PDF and it doesn't send. It's no bueno. You want to make sure that everything is on the up and up and it's easy to access. The client understands how to access it and it's accessible for them. Okay, so that's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed making it. And I want you to know that you have power when it comes to your intellectual property. Stop feeding these big machines. If you want to talk more about your book launch, then I've created a service that will enable us to book an hour of time to speak with each other about your potential book launch. Now, this is only for those individuals who are ready, who need marketing strategies to help get their book out there. If you just have an idea of your book, that's not the right product or service for you from me. You need to be at the finish line and you want to go ahead and start getting it out there. And I'll gladly talk to you about it. So you can go to www.rightwayconsulting.net, and then that way you can go to the services page rather, and you will see that service and then you can book it and we'll talk. And thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the upload. This is Lynette Renee Doby, an Amazon bestselling ghostwriter, and I wish you an amazing evening and I'll see you in the next upload.